You've got to play a brand of football that starts from the back, builds out, beats the press, and plays lovely tippy-tappy
Because I think you're getting branded now in two different camps. You're either a footballing, playing out for the back, or you're Sean Dyche.
Maresca has come in, and whether that is chance that they've stumbled on him, they saw what he did at Leicester. But actually, you look at that team, and there's an identity to that team.
How many times do you see, watching a game, a goal goes in, and there's this pointing fingers, throwing arms in the air?
So individuals not taking responsibility.
Absolutely not.
Now, for the purpose of this conversation, because you slaughtered Wenger last week, you want to make sure you're on the right side of the Arsenal argument.
We can't talk about. We can't.
He does that, doesn't he?
Was it me you wanted to comment from?
Yes,
Busy
please.
bollocks.
Please. Would you ban agents?
We can't, though, can you?
I do.
No, but I'm saying-
Of course I can. I can do as I please. It's my training grounds.
Ban players from having agents. You can
No, ban them from your
I can,
contract.
I can refuse to deal with them. Hello and welcome to Three Up Front. This week, we're going to be challenging conventional wisdom. Now, despite the need to have conventional wisdom in a room and have some wise men, I'm lumbered with Graeme Souness, Troy Deeney, and the fourth musketeer, Henry Winter. Nice to see you, Henry. You're going to intellectualise the conversation for us. Anyway, we're going to talk about, as I said, conventional wisdoms, hot takes, bandwagons, for want of a better expression, tropes. So why don't you kick us off, Henry, given I just said you're going to intellectualise it and raise the bar on us?
I will try. I'll drag the bar down. Right, let's talk tactics. Foolhardy, all about the philosophy. Playing out from the back is the secret to survival and success in the Premier League. Agree or disagree?
Totally disagree. Yeah. Here's a really interesting take on it. When we get to, you can see about Vincent Kompany.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're mostly referring to Southampton. If he continues with that, two things will happen. He'll get relegated, he'll be out of a job. When you become so predictable, you're too easy to play.
How does it work for Swansea, though? Swansea went up 10 years ago, and everybody said you can't play that brand of football. Surely you can play it if you've got the resource that's capable of being able to operate at that level.
You can always pick a team
an outlier.
Yeah, you always pick a team and say, that happened for them. I'll put it another, this is the best way I think I can put it. If I'm Pep Guardiola, I phone up the Southampton manager the night before the game and say to him, look, could you do us a big favour tomorrow? Could you attempt every opportunity to play it from the back? So we'll just come up to the halfway line, our last player will be on the halfway line, and all my attacking players will come after you. We'll nick it off you in the last third, and within two touches of the ball, we're going to be on a shot at your goal. If you ask any Arteta, the Liverpool manager, any of the top teams, how do you want the lesser teams to play? That would be it. Because that's guaranteeing them. You basically try to take them on at their game.
Yeah. So how do you manage a situation then? If you've played that way and you've identified it as a way that you've played to get out of the Championship,
That's
your
question.
I know, but let me finish it because I know what the answer is going to be. Well, you got used to get out of the Championship to lesser division, but you've now developed a philosophy of a group of players that have worked for you, and it's a methodology that works. And all of a sudden, you've got to do a 180-degree pivot.
Come in again?
Go on.
It doesn't. See, with you, having previous with you, it's either that or that.
No, it's not.
There can be what you have to do when you're playing football
is adapt.
You have to be creating doubt in opposition. So if you're continually playing like that, as I've said, people will come right up to halfway line and press you all the time. Ask any centre half, what is he frightened of? He's frightened of pace.
Yeah, in behind.
So when I played, and I know you hate me saying this, but when I played, we were the passing team. We were the football team on not very good pitches. But for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe even 45 minutes, to make the pitch bigger, which would allow us to play, we used to get Ian Rush in a race. What centre halves don't want, ideally for them, they want to get up to the halfway and get that close, knowing everything's going to take place there. What they don't want is the threat of in behind. So what would happen then? They start to drop off, the midfield start to drop off, and the pitch becomes bigger, and then you can get playing. I would say to any of these up-and-coming coaches, mix it up a bit. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Find a middle ground.
But isn't that common sense, right? We sit here, and everyone seems to sit here and say the same thing. And I'm pretty sure that the Southampton owner will be saying the same thing about Russell Martin, and ultimately the philosophy of indulging him to a certain point before he says, "Let's get fucking real here. We've paid a lot of money to get in the Premier League. We want to stay there."
Now, lots of people are talking about it. You make a great point. The Vincent Kompany would move from that No, he did.
Before, when he let
I
me speak.
defended you last week, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Oh, all the time.
Thanks, mate.
All
I'm
the time.
going to have to watch the episode.
You
So
give
I
your
did
take
it. I
on
was
Vincent
sulking.
You'll have to look
Company.
closely.
I was sulking because he took the place.
Give your take on Vincent Company.
Yeah, so basically how I see Henry is that if you are a young coach now, you're in a dilemma. So do you have this philosophy? Russell Martin, let's use him as a case and example. You're playing out from the back. You've just seen Vincent Company do that for a year, ultimately fail in the end goal, which was get relegated, but then get rewarded for one of the best jobs in world football. Now we can talk about the nuance behind that, who helped him, who didn't help him, whatever. But why would you go away from that when you're seeing coaches now be rewarded for doing that style of play? If it was up to me, I would be more in your camp of they're too predictable. When we came up with Watford, it was very much, right, what have we got? Would we like to, all players would like to play football, we'd all like to get on it a turn. Well, we're probably going to get beat up 6-0 every week. So let's go a little bit longer, let's rough them up. But I think now the level between the Championship and the Prem is getting so big because everyone's trying to come up and do it that way. To be...
Yeah, but
to be
is
like
there an issue here that a lot of coaches want to be mini Peps, but they don't have Pep squad?
Absolutely.
Spot on.
But I think also as well now it's become, and probably it's a thrown question to you, Simon, from an ownership point of view, have owners now started looking at getting in the Premier League as just that's good enough, just to get there because of the monetary value of that? You don't mind dropping and coming back, as opposed to now looking at what's going to keep us there, I suppose.
I mean, I would suggest, having done that journey, that the idea of getting into the Premier League is not as romantic as the idea of staying there.
Mm-hmm.
So staying there is far more prevalent. And I'm trying to find out whether, I'm trying to work out in my own thinking, superimposing myself back 10 years, as to whether the style of play issue would ever have mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because my style of play was fucking 3 points at the end of the week, thank you very much. But they seem so wedded to a philosophy. I mean, is Kieran McKenna in that camp
he's
now?
getting found out. Of course,
Kieran's
He
the only
varies
one.
it a
About to
bit.
say, he's the only one who's come out and said openly, "I'm not sure what we are yet
We're-
because this is so much
We're
different."
talking about teams that are getting relegated.
Yeah.
Can we go back 6-8 months? Do you remember what Real Madrid did at Man City Stadium?
Yeah.
The team that ended up winning the Champions League. In the whole second half, he was going to his goalkeeper,
Yeah, just Lord.
Ancelotti, just put it in their half. So the goalkeeper was kicking it. City would get it down. They'd pass it. And then that was some sort of effort on the
But
goal.
Pep's prepared to do that as well. I mean,
But you have to mix it up.
Mixing it up is the key thing. But he's got the players to do it because he gets everyone playing. You step into midfield, the fullbacks inverse into midfield, everything is midfield. And then what Pep does, he goes long. He gets Ederson to drill it 70 yards to Erling Haaland, old
And
school.
you're creating the doubt.
Yes, that it can happen.
Haaland can run like the wind.
So what's wrong with these guys then? Because it almost feels like it's a religion. You've got to play a brand of football that starts from the back, builds out, beats the press, and plays lovely tippy-tappy
Because I think you're getting branded now in two different camps. You're either a footballing, playing out from the back, or you're Sean Dyche. And
But
I
it
think,
doesn't have to be either or.
no, I know, but I'm saying from the fan looking at it, you're either total football or there's no grey.
Do you think
area
managers
anymore.
really think like that?
I genuinely do, yeah, because I think if we was all sit here now and Sean Dyche was to get sacked from Everton, I hope that doesn't happen, as you know, fond memories of it. But if you think about that, where would he land now in the Premier League? What team would he land at if he was out of work?
Well, a team that's struggling might go down or top end of the Championship.
But if you took Russell Martin out, you'd probably argue he'd probably get another job somewhere because of the style of play.
You're forcing a way of playing on people who don't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, the centre-halves are really, really frightened. They're having to poke the ball in knowing it might get cut out, and getting it cut out in the last third within one touch or two touches ends up with an effort on your goal.
But then that tactical evolution, you then get Pep effectively playing 4 centre-halves. And they are all happy taking the ball under pressure.
He'd play all midfield players if he could get away with it.
But you say that as well, just to that point, Arsenal now playing 4 centre-halves when everyone's fit. And when Tony Pulis was doing that, it was the worst thing in the world.
So
I
that's
know
interesting.
they're different types.
But that's really interesting. So do you think it's a slight sort of media snobbery towards the Tony Pulis? Right.
We speak about it off air in a completely different subject, but now no one wants to get criticised. If you do something wrong, you get criticised. Players, managers, whoever.
Isn't it relative to the club, though? There's an expectation on Liverpool and Arsenal and Spurs and Manchester City and Manchester United to play a certain way. And again, I go back to the question of ownership against management ideologies, against player capabilities. And it doesn't make any sense to me because the evidence is before your eyes now. And we are now seeing a starker trait developing, which is not good for the Premier League, which is the free promoted sides will be the free
Come on,
relegated
come back
sides.
down. Yeah.
And we're already in an environment which is almost anti-competitive by its
Yes.
very nature.
And of course, the issue is in the Championship, it's an absolute dogfight, and you can't play.
The difference
Pretty
is,
football.
having played in both
Yeah.
recently, the difference is when you make the mistakes, and Russell will be totally honest. If
You don't
get
get punished the same way.
You can lose 5 or 6 mistakes because you'll get punished once in the
Yeah.
Championship. You do that in the Prem. That was my biggest learning. When we moved to the Prem,
Same with chances.
one mistake, bang, goal. Oh my God.
and
you
the
bet.
same with chances.
Yeah,
When you've got a
absolutely.
chance, you've got to take it.
You got to score, and you see it now when they're going through. I think there was one where Cameron Archer went through 1v1. He ends up hitting the bar, but you only get 2 shots against Man City. You better score both.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? When you're the lesser teams, and I just think my frustration with these coaches, these teams, is not that they're trying to do it their way. Fair play to you, die on your sword, but have a little bit of common sense and go, right, get this ball away from our box. There has to be a cut-off point. And I watched Arsenal versus Leicester not too long ago. First half, Arsenal should have been 8-0 up because Leicester were trying to play out for the back, You've got Jamie Vardy. Put it in behind. Let him run. They did
But
it.
where are the players in this? Is out of curiosity. You always talk,
Frustration.
you always talk about it,
Yes,
Graham,
mate.
about the fact that players are self-regulators at times. If you've got a good dressing room,
And-
you've got
and
one capable of having an
If
opinion.
you're in a good dressing room.
Fine. Where are the players in this conversation with managers when they're getting their arse handed to them on a weekly basis because they're being asked to play in a certain way?
Yeah.
What happens in a dressing room with a manager that's got a philosophy that he's wedded to, and it's all wonderful for him because he thinks it's a wonderful ideology?
Yeah.
Big players
You
will
guys
speak
get
up
back
about
to
it.
I would say that's why the lack of leadership is falling out of the game now, where you can't name who's a captain of a massive club like Man United. Yes, you can see it with the armband, but who's the real leader? Who gets hold of it? I think when you're playing, and there's been times when I've played, and certainly when you played, there'll be times it's not working. Right, between now and half time, do it our way. Get hold of your team. Right, we're going to turn it for 10 minutes. Be ugly, make fouls, do whatever you need to do. Get in at half time and we'll figure it out. Now everyone just goes, well, he told me to do it, so I'll
No,
just
they're
do it.
looking to the bench.
The
They're
accountability is like
waiting
this.
until they're getting at half time. Can you tell us what we should be doing?
How many
Get-
ti-
I'm
So
sorry,
to
I
talk
must
about
have been so
how
lucky.
many times do you see watching a game, a goal goes in and there's this pointing fingers, throwing arms in the air?
Not
So
my man
individuals
didn't
not
score.
taking responsibility.
Absolutely not.
They don't anymore.
Because it's all for them. It's all for the crowd. But when you go into that meeting room Sunday or Monday after a game and it's on the board, that's when the real leaders step up and go, hold on a second. What about that? What about that? What about that?
So over the last 10, 12 years,
Mhm.
when you were playing, you saw fewer and fewer leaders in the game.
Absolutely.
Is that a societal thing or a football thing?
It's a football thing because it's what about me?
And
Self-preservation.
society.
Well,
as
they're a
well.
product of
Oh, it's-
society.
yeah.
So it is society
It is.
as well.
Yeah, I'm not as
Vacuums
educated
of
as you are.
vacuums of leadership.
Troy, it's a really interesting point you make about
That'd be a
Arsenal.
first.
So possession isn't everything. But are we seeing with Mikel Arteta that he's almost becoming a hybrid of
Mhm.
Mourinho and Guardiola?
And he's been hammered for it, isn't he, in the media as well, for now mixing up his game and figuring out a different way of playing without one of his best players in Odegaard, and especially when Saka was missing as well. So I tip my hat to him. What do you think? He has to give it. He has to
He's
think
doing
about
a
it.
great job.
Yeah.
He thought he was a coward against Man
By
City
the way,
for
just a
banking up.
quick
No, but
one.
that's a whole different argument.
Ceded psychological advantage.
He did to
Showed
the biggest
weakness.
rival. But I
Now,
thought
for the purpose of this conversation,
See-
because you slaughtered Wenger last week, you want to
See,
make sure
we
you're on the
can't-
right side of the Arsenal argument.
we can't talk about we
He
can't.
does though, doesn't he?
Was it me you wanted to comment from?
Yes,
Or busy
please.
bollocks?
please.
Who's busy bollocks?
Try. So, my point is, we've spent 10 minutes talking about playing out from the back. No, you got to mix it up. You got to, see a bit of doubt in the opposition's head. I think he's doing that,
Mhm.
and I think those days, when you talk about possession, to that normally related to possession. Majority of it meant you'd have most chances to score more goals. This is how the game's
Now it's
changed.
passive
A
possession.
lot of the possession is on the fucking
Passive
halfway line.
possession.
And
It's on the
Arsenal's two
halfway
goals
line.
against Liverpool came one from a long ball from Ben White
Great
down
ball.
the channel. Fantastic ball. He obviously knows Saka well. And the second one was a set piece.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that was fascinating on tactics. Simon, what have you got for us?
Something for Graham to get his dentures into. No, I want to talk about changing the thought processes and the changing of a particular set of outcomes that have been challenging for the last couple of years, which is Chelsea, and the idea that they've got no idea. You've now got a Chelsea team that are cohesive, coming together. So does that mean that either Todd Bowley, if he's still around much longer, or Egbali, are subsequently now in a situation where they're getting it more right than they're getting it wrong?
I think not for the first time you've gone early. It's very early to pass any sort of judgment on
But
this
you went
Chelsea
bloody
team.
early about how shit they were.
You've asked me the question, I'll answer it.
But I just want to qualify so we keep on the tracks.
I think
Come on,
Chelsea.
down drivel corridor.
I think with the current group of players Chelsea have, they have a chance to get into the top 4. And I still think they're a good bit off of winning either the Premier League or the Champions League with that group of players. I think there'll be enormous wastage in the current group of players. I think a lot of them will never come up to the levels they think they'll come up to. And the most obvious one at this moment in time who's not on the team, Enzo Fernandez, who they broke
100 million.
Yeah.
Who's the captain?
Captain, 115
Well, the boy Mudryk as
million.
well, by the way.
So they've bought a load of players that won't come up to the level they would have hoped. And my point with Chelsea is that there would have been a different way of doing it. I think they went out and it was a scattergun approach, just buying everyone and anyone of a certain age that came up. Another thing I said, they're just storing problems up for themselves further down the line. And the case in point would be Sterling, who they had to give away.
No, I put him on loan.
But they're paying a huge chunk of his wages.
Sure, but they may well.
So they're going to be confronted with that situation at least another half a dozen to 10 times, where players will not come up to scratch, surplus to their needs. They're sitting on 7 and 8 year contracts. They will not leave Chelsea and go anywhere without getting a big golden handshake to walk out the door. Chelsea won't get any value for them when they sell them because they're going to be a failure there, and they'll have to pay them to go.
Okay,
so
well,
that's not a business model that's sustainable.
Well, it depends upon what you're achieving on the field, because now what we've got is a hell of a lot of expenditure with underlying assets they can get out of, maybe not for quite the same money as they bought, but they've depreciated anyway.
Not the
no, but let me finish. You haven't let me
They'll
finish.
get their trousers taken down.
Let me finish. You haven't. Well, you say that, but why would they get their trousers taken down?
Because they'll be deemed not to be successful, having failed at Chelsea.
But success is all relative. And success is all based upon what they want to achieve at the time. What? So now they're moving towards a direction of travel where they're potentially looking like a side that might win something this season, that could get inside the top 4 if you qualify that as a win. Well, they've got League Cups, they've got European competitions they can participate in. I know the European Conference League is the pub league of European football, but notwithstanding it, other people made a diet out of it. Jose Mourinho wanted to win it, and David Moyes has won it.
But they're not targeting it because you look at the squad that they've chosen.
But
the key thing is that the point you're coming to of no idea and no ID is that Maresca has come in, and whether that is chance that they've stumbled on him, they saw what he did at Leicester, but actually you look at that team and there's an identity to that team. There is a balance to that team. He's made Jackson better. They still need a goalkeeper. They've still obviously got injuries. The centre halves, you could argue, coming back to your point about leadership, who is the real captain there? They lost Thiago Silva. Possibly could have kept him if they could for another year. I think the recent changes in European law, the Diarra case, is going to be a huge issue for players who are on good for players who are on long-term contracts because they can probably get out of that and force their way out. And that is a huge problem for the club, who's, as you say, spent over £1 billion.
Indeed, but that's a unique. Hang on, that's a unique set of circumstances.
There's a unique set of circumstances, but the fact is they're probably actually over-delivering on the pitch from what we expected. The media narrative pre-season was that Chelsea are going to struggle, but they haven't really struggled.
But that's my point.
Pitch.
To all of your points, I think with Maresca, it's fantastic what he's done because we all hammered him as well. You can't send players over there and do that, but actually, you bloody can because he's made it a point of these are my 24, 25 players. These guys are still here to take care of it.
It's also the ridiculousness of the myopic, one-dimensional point of view, like the idea that you can't sign players on long-term contracts. Now, I get the principle of it because you take away their hunger. In one hand, you'll turn around and say the modern-day player doesn't represent any culture that I came from because they don't represent it. But now that culture has changed, but it can't change in the direction of wanting longer-term contracts. But that doesn't work.
Sorry, but the point about hunger is that they actually weight the deals that you make more the longer you stay. So they come in on
But that's what Chelsea have done.
Yeah, exactly.
So Chelsea's ratcheting of the contracts they put them on are actually based upon their performances. So they've got a longer term contract which has kickers in it.
Yeah,
then surely that inbuilts the hunger.
But that's my point. The point he's saying is they're idiots for doing 8-year contracts.
Do you think this is a way in which new clubs now and new owners will start to look at Chelsea and go, well, we should do that, where they probably spend a bit more in the short term to bridge that gap so quickly? Because we saw Man U try to have a rebuild.
It depends what happens with Manchester City and generally and PSR.
Okay.
Because
but that's not, Henry, that's not true, because Man City's allegations got nothing to do with PSR. They've got to do with the representation of finance.
Just the whole general. No, but the fact that Manchester City will always take these will often take these legal battles towards the Premier
Well, if
League.
Man City are going to take a legal battle to overcome PSR, full stop, they've won the battle about associated party transactions, which they should have done, right? Because actually it's a global world, and how are you going to stop people from dealing with businesses that you own if you've got global owners?
But we can see the direction of travel with the lawyers.
The PSR has got their case is about representing equity, or commercial money as equity. So the answer to your question is, how can they? Unless you're going to go and buy, nobody has ever bought a football club for £2.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
But let's just take, for argument's sake, Man United, right? New owners, looked around, saw what he likes, what he doesn't like, and he goes, right, see what Chelsea did. I'm going to throw X amount of dollars at this.
If the PSR rules change,
yeah,
Newcastle will be doing it now.
Yeah.
And you'd have to say, despite all my protestations over the past, I don't know where Henry is on this, I think PSR is a disgrace. I thought it was to help get rid of inflation and help to get some controls into place and level it up a little bit so that people couldn't spend more than they had. What it's done is strangling the game and fixing the problem that wasn't there. I'm sorry about Reading and I'm sorry about Leyton Orient, but the Premier League doesn't need regulation to stop investment in it, and Newcastle should be able to build a team in the same way that Man City and Chelsea were able to do. So all you've now got is a status quo staying in the same positions, and Newcastle, I feel sorry for Eddie Howe, because all this expectation of apparently the world's richest club. And how's he going to achieve an outcome? Because he can't get his turnover up to 500 million quid to spend £300 million on wages.
So do you think PSR's dead?
I think it should be. I think it's a disgrace. And I don't think the
But do you
regulators
think it is?
No, I don't. I think they'll do anchoring next and they'll do all kinds of bullshit.
So,
but the Chelsea model is not a model. Bowley and Egbali are looking at it going, this is £2.5 billion today. In 10 years' time, it could be 15 billion quid as alongside a load of associated benefit to after other businesses that we've got. So there's a lot there. Be fascinating to see when Sky's broadcast figures start to drop and their numbers start to drop and they can't afford to do broadcast deal with what actually happens to football. But that's a different discussion. So I think it's fair to say that I was right in the first instance that Chelsea will be on the right path sooner rather than later. Now it's Graham's turn to shine and bring us a subject.
No, there's this constant reminder through your colleagues in the media that the foreign coaches are better than British coaches. I would dispute that.
Okay, so if we're looking at the Premier League at the moment, I think that
What does that? That doesn't mean they're better. They've got better jobs.
Okay, but if you look at the coaching pathway in a country like Spain, which has 5 Premier League managers to 3 English, you look at the coaching structure that they have there, the pathway they have there, the pro license, they've got 8 times as many pro license holders.
Cheaper there.
It's much cheaper. It's 13,000. I mean, you'll be heading into this. I mean, it's £13,700 over here, and it is, I think it's about sort of 1,100 quid in Spain. So listen, we have a problem with the coaching issues in this country. St George's Park has only been open for 11, 12 years. Curviciano outside Florence, where so many Italian coaches made. I'm just making the point, and you come from a great coaching country in terms of the Scottish coaches who've come south and done amazing things, won titles, won European titles. I don't think that flow of outstanding British coaches is there as it was.
Is there an argument to be had of opportunity in terms of Pep's a man at the top now, so we go down the Spanish route because of that. It's the one in style at this moment in time.
It used to be Italian.
Yeah, used to be Italian. Before that, it used to be different.
Let me establish. I just want to establish your position, the premise you're coming from. You're saying that the gap is not widening between the quality of British managers and foreign coaches. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And what are you basing that upon?
Well, if we start with Pep inherited Man City had won leagues, both with 2 previous managers. Arne Slot's taken over Liverpool. So he's taken over more or less the finished article.
Klopp took over from Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
With a busted flush of the Liverpool
you always pick one out of a group of things.
What's up with you?
Well, he created a monster at Liverpool. He did. He got it back to where historically they've been for a very long time. But no, I'm not buying it. They do anything different. I don't see. I've been on the touchline. I've said this to you before.
So there's a global marketplace, Graham, and that's why the Premier League is picking around the world, because we haven't got to take from the 65 million people in this country. But there's no representation overseas of any great merit or significance from English managers. So we've got no representation in the Premier League. We've got diminishing representation in the Championship. We've got diminishing representation in League One. We've got no representation in the world. We've got no representation at national level. And you don't think the gap is widening between British coaches and the rest of the world?
I'm coming from a place where it's all about players. Players are the most important thing at any football club. Now, Pep came to England. Pep had the best group of players at Barcelona in the Spanish league. Pep had the best group of players in Germany who was working at Bayern Munich. And he came to this country as the best group of
But
players.
this has got nothing to do with English
And
coaches.
he certainly has added it. So I'm coming back to the point. It's all about players. Give an English coach the Liverpool squad. Give an English coach the Man City squad. Give an English coach the Arsenal squad. I think they do as well.
Do you think that's true, Henry? We had an English coach for 8 years at the top of the national game. Right? And I would have screamed and shouted for a foreign coach with more bravery and more substance about him than Gareth Southgate, and so would you.
And I think a lot
that's
of
an
England
individual
fans by the end
Southgate.
would have said the same.
Yeah, but there might be an Englishman out there, a British man that could do it.
Do you
differently.
think Klopp would have got England over the line?
Every chance.
Yeah. I mean, that was, and Southgate was, the great standard bearer. Eddie Howe, there's obviously so much hope in Eddie Howe because he's a big club, big opportunity, and everyone wants to see him do
And he
well
was an
there.
outstanding English candidate.
Yeah, but it was a
But
very
they never
shallow
spoke to him.
pool. I mean, there was only, and you see, I thought that was scandalous by the Football Association. I thought it was disrespectful. What sort of message does it send out to sort of coaches? The fact that there was a glass ceiling. So the problems within the Football Association, but also dugouts now are reflecting dressing rooms. It's a polyglot world.
Obviously, at Watford, worked under a lot of managers.
You've got a lot of managers to sack. You've just opened the door for me
Don't have to do it
again.
again.
Have you told Henry how many that is?
It's fine. Henry's worked. He's seen it. Anyway,
Yeah.
You know, it was
my point,
18
what I was,
he got the sack.
the difference, 17 helped to better jobs is what I'd like to say.
Out of the game.
And he got himself a sack at Forest Green.
Yeah,
So he
did
kept
take
it up.
long-
Got
yeah,
19.
yeah, exactly. Anyway,
It was
my
a me,
point-
myself, and Irene moment. No, you won't. Yes, I will. No, you won't.
My point, what I'm saying is, when you stop being a knobhead, is that what I found the difference between foreign managers and English managers. Yes, everyone works a lot of hours, but I feel like foreign managers, they weave their way into the fabric. It's like every single thing about them is that team, that weekend. It's straight after the game, on the bus, on the laptops. I feel like with the English guys, there's a little bit, this doesn't go to everyone, there's a little bit of, yes, we do our work, but we go home and then we enjoy the family. I think there's an element.
I think Eddie
Do you get
Howe's
what I
got
mean?
that work ethic, but I take your general point, and you're definitely seeing it at Aston Villa, top of the
Absolutely.
Champions League, doing well in the Premier League. But don't you think this is a natural evolution of what's happened? You could say it's society, but also in football, the fact that there are more foreign players, you're going to get more foreign managers, and also
arguably.
and also
And
because-
also, are we?
Won't always be a positive influence either.
But are we?
But don't
are
you think it's a
wrong
sorry?
though?
But don't you think? I mean, you're doing your coaching
So,
badges
so
now. Do
David
you
Sullivan
need
sits at
language?
West Ham and he employs a Spanish coach.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit of that? The fact that you've got a Spanish coach, you've got a dressing room of a variety of different players from around the globe, and he's picked a Spanish coach, taken out a British coach. You had Chelsea put Graham Potter in there. The irony of it is that this tacit refusal to accept. The only reason this Premier League is where it is because if it was left to the British, and I'm an Englishman through and through, and proud to be one, every aspect of our game now, foreign ownership, foreign directors,
foreign players.
managers, foreign coaches, foreign players, and the reasons why the Premier League is where it is now, and the reasons why our English players are technically better. Your team of Liverpool and the Nottingham Forest team were exceptions. There were exceptions. You had an exceptional dressing room, and Brian Clough was an exceptional manager. But en masse, we look at players now across the entire Rubicon of the Premier League, and the quality is much higher from English players than it has been before. You look at the Fodens that have come through.
I disagree with
You disagree?
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay.
Oh, but sorry, the quality that's coming out of the academy. The
Miles
academy's-
better.
Yes.
Miles better.
Cole
Well,
Palmer,
The game,
Phil Foden, Jude Bellingham came through a championship,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
know well, and now obviously has sort of lit up Europe.
and you go back in the history.
Totally agree, but I think we had a dip in terms of
So there's
English
no good
technical
players
quality. But I think we've got an incredible generation
No,
coming
I think
through.
I think the quality of the pitches and the way the game is played now
Sure.
will appear to the untrained eye that the better players, the untrained eye.
But it's
better players
again.
today.
I take your point. It's about players, but it's also about how you manage them. You need good managers to be able to manage players. You need to. Pep Guardiola walked into a side. You're absolutely right. He walked into the Man City dressing room after Pellegrini had won the league with them or wherever it was,
And Mancini.
but he made them Mancini before that. Right? But he followed him after Pellegrini, didn't he? And you look at it and you go, "What is this Manchester City side recognisable to the one he inherited?" No, it's a completely different side. So he changed it.
It was still full of top players.
Yes, but he made them better, and he coached them
And he's
better.
got better players as well.
If British coaches were as good as their counterparts, and they weren't given opportunities in the Premier League because of some bias of foreign ownership, then they'd find their way into other parts of the world whether it be in the French league, the Italian
You've got a
league,
few
the
there,
German league, the
Liam
Dutch
Brasilia's
league.
gone out to
Yeah,
the
and
French league,
Liam, unfortunately, I think was unfairly treated
Yes.
at Hull. I think he should have been given another
Because he's
season.
doing
I
well at
ask you-
Strasbourg.
Is there a stigma around English people being a little bit ignorant to learning new languages and foreign languages that an owner may look at and go, maybe that's what we're not going to do in terms of
No, I mean,
communicating in the dressing
everybody's
room?
impressed with somebody who can speak more than one language, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, most people learn English because there's a necessity to do so.
Of course.
So I don't think football owners look at it and go, well, actually, I want a multifaceted polyglot that can communicate in 10 different languages because I've got a dressing room that does that. They look at the capability of the individual. I don't know what will happen, say, in another subject matter like Man United, and how many languages this guy that's coming in there might be able to speak. But the first language you need to understand is what's the language of his fucking football team.
Yeah.
Do
No, I'm
they
just
win?
saying, is there potentially a bias behind that? That's all I'm thinking.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, James Milner just speaks to his kids in Spanish. Have you started learning another
I have
language?
trying to learn Spanish, but I'm definitely not talking to the kids in Spanish. They can
Why
talk
does
better.
James
got to learn
Miller
English
do
first.
that?
They speak better in Spanish and French than me.
I don't know. I think it's like whether it's to improve his own Spanish. I think when he went into the Manchester City dressing room, there were so many Spanish speakers there because of the
Yeah, yeah.
Argentinians, and I
It's the
think he
next
learned
language,
it.
Gray. It's the
I
language.
think it's
of-
useful. I mean, I got dumped in school in Munich. I got dumped in school in Paris, as well as obviously growing up in London. And it just gives you a sort of slightly broader view of the world, as well as the individual language.
And I'm
skills,
just
which are
saying-
useful.
I'm
I agree
asking-
on Spanish. Can I
I'm
just
asking from a
digress?
higher point of view. Are they looking at that
Can I
potentially?
just digress?
I'm sure
briefly?
owners are.
Yes, of course, go.
I was asked to judge Miss World many years ago. And it came home
In a
to me
Mac.
then.
I'm so worried about
From
this
the park.
guy.
It came home to me then because every other contestant was speaking Spanish. Well, it'd be from South America.
So do you start learning?
No, should have not.
What did that add to the conversation?
He wanted to brag
How
that he'd been
important it is to speak
invited
Spanish?
to go to a Miss.
How important
Him and
it is
Eric
to speak
Morley.
Spanish as a second language? Yeah.
Okay, so football agents, a hindrance or a help? Football agents, are they the scourge of the game? So for me personally, I had the same agent for 15 years, was excellent. Our relationship worked really well.
Was
Did you pay him yourself? No.
was
Was
Has he dropped you?
Was have you?
Well,
We
I don't
parted ways?
need, yes, because I'm not in football now,
No.
am I? So I've moved to the side.
You're
I'm
a
not
media
playing
man.
But will he be your agent if you're ever given an opportunity to manage?
in management. Yeah, he'll help me out as well.
So you
Yeah.
trust him?
Absolutely,
So
yeah,
how
it's a
much
friendship
trust
as well.
is there? Can a player?
Because what I think is what was key for me, and my point to this was, I think it's always clear to set out your intention from the start. So I always viewed, because I came into football late, I viewed an agent as if I was going to the bank and wanted a mortgage. It was an interaction of, right, I need this, can you deliver it? What do you take out of it? It's just a business transaction. And I was going to tee it up to him, but I know what he's for already. So I'm going to tee it up to you. In your line of work, how difficult or easy have agents become helping you out? Because trying to get to players now is harder than ever. So how have you found agents and dealing with agents? And also, have you found any horror stories that you can share with us?
Young players need someone that they can trust. And I think what you find increasingly is that a lot of them are turning to siblings to keep an eye on them. We've seen that
Should
with
be the
Marcus.
union.
We see Marcus Rashford. We're seeing it with Trent Alexander-Arnold, people that they can trust. So I don't begrudge any young player, and particularly they're going so early into this profession, having someone to look after them. Now, whether you should then have a traditional agent or whether it should be a lawyer and someone doing
Is that
your
not something the
PR.
club should be doing?
No, it should be the bloody union. It should be the PFA's responsibility. They spend most of their times with their thumbs up their backsides taking money out of football, the PFA. They should be doing that. They have no commercial gain from it. They have objectivity in their mind with the well-being of their so-called members for future generations. It should be them. You start sticking flesh traders into young kids at 16 years of age, giving them delusions of grandeur. It's a recipe for success, for absolute failure. I'm writing this.
And do you know how these young players get taken up by agents?
Yeah.
There'll generally be there'll be an agent for a senior player in a particular
Correct.
football club. The question's asked, who are the good kids coming through? That agent will be introduced to the young
put them
player
in the
by
right
the older
direction.
player, and there you go.
And a lot of the approaches are now on Instagram, through social media. But it's interesting your point
There's good and
generally
bad in
about...
every. You have to say there's good and bad in everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's good agents and there's different agents.
I've dealt with all of them. And yes, you're right. There are some ones that are facilitatory, that are not in the business of division. Because most of the time, whether you were grown up enough to deal with an agent, and as players get more senior, they recognise the fact they can do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And there wasn't
there's a
kind of money
balance.
in it.
No, absolutely.
Either.
And what is most ridiculous about the agency world is the more money in football, the less regulations the agents have had to be able to adhere to. Once upon a time, you could only represent one party. Now you can represent the buying club, the selling club, the player. The player's aunt and uncle, if you want to. So you've got all of these conflicts of interests.
Well, I want to ask a question side to you, especially when you was obviously at Palace. Did you see, because you had a very young, a lot of players, I'm just trying to think, like Victor Moses, Wayne Routledge, people of that nature.
John Bostock.
Yeah, did you
Nathaniel
find
Kine.
that they were
Wilfried Zaha.
poorly advised, well advised? What was the whole on that?
I tried to keep them as far away from my football academy as I possibly could. I delighted in sending my players away to England camps and finding them coming back with an agent, which infuriated me, and created division between the clubs and the players, because young players that have been brought through my academy that I took a great deal of passion and commitment into, and also forward investment and ambition for them, because I wanted them to be successful at my football club, were then in the hands of football agents that main focus was to monetize the opportunity.
Just one thing, you said division. What's so divisive for the average listener that doesn't know what the inner workings are? What would you see
how does an agent
as
make
division?
Money? How does an agent make money? Getting a kid off a scholarship contract on his first pro contract. How does an agent make money when a kid's 19 years of age, knocking on the door of being a very good footballer at a lesser club than a Crystal Palace rather than an Arsenal? How does he make money? He makes money by creating a move. That's how he makes money. He doesn't make money by me re-signing Wayne Routledge or me re-signing Wilfried Zaha or me re-signing Victor Moses or whatever young player I had for the academy. So that creates a complete distance between the club and the agents. And so I am very negative towards them.
Would you ban agents?
Would I ban them?
We can't, though, can you?
I do.
No,
Well, of course I can. I can do it as a police. It's my training ground.
Yeah, would you ban them for the
can't ban
training
them
ground?
from-
You ban players from having agents. You can
No,
ban
ban
them
them
from
from
your
training
property.
ground.
I can refuse to deal with them,
Yeah.
which is tantamount to giving players a belief system. If I've got a player on a 4-year contract or 3 or 4 year contract and I refuse to deal with their agent, it puts them in a situation. But I also believe that there's a space and place. It's about regulation. It's about governance. And I hate the word governance because I hate the idea of an independent regulator. But I do believe that football agents have got to be given more controls over them.
£250 million Premier League clubs spent on agents last year.
And we're happy to do so, apparently.
That is a lot.
Yeah, it's a
money.
lot.
The irony of it is, though, as much as I protest and rail against the system and give my King Canute impression, they are in amongst it. They're in between the wall and the wallpaper. And I tell you, I don't know a football club owner whose money it is that respects the agency profession. I know CEOs whose money it ain't, who find it a necessary evil to serve a greater good and work with it. I remember David Gill years ago, and I like David, saying, I'm quite happy to be quite braggadocious about the amount of agents' fees they'd paid. And I remember saying to him, I wonder if your bonus that you get your salary from was indexed to how many agents' fees you'd paid, you'd bring that agency fee level right down. Again, it's about the nature of the beast. The genie's out of the bottle. You know, the toothpaste isn't going back in the tube. Agents are part of the game. It's now about finding a way to work with them and create a situation. And maybe Todd Bowley in his lunacy, by putting people on 8-year contracts, has taken the necessity for agents out of commission for some period of time. Or maybe actually he's increased the need for them because he's going to have to move these buggers along. What to your logic?
Sorry, one other thing is that from our perspective, the media needs and likes agents for information. Yeah. Team news, information, players'
just on that then, real quickly, is there an element of trust that you have to build up with the agent, or do you take it as fact because it could potentially sell news headlines? What's the fine line?
You would check with someone else.
Yeah.
Right, fellas, that will do. As long as I can rant and rave about agents, I'll be happy. But we've got to bring it to an end. So don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us where you get your podcasts.
This has been 3 Up Front, brought to you by William Hill.
Subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes.
And don't forget to go back for some of my upfront episodes. Not bad if I do say so myself.
18 plus, please gamble responsibly.